I think every background and every job description can be individualized to climate action. And for me, filmmaking is the same. If we make the right content that glues to people's emotions and actually is at the same time meaningfully impactful for the purpose of the world, and that's why we need to redefine what matters to us.
There is a question. How do you make the new within a story without making it sanctimonious? Because people don't want to be lectured. They don't like it when Hollywood celebrities come and go like, hey, you should go green, blah, blah, blah. You need to do it in a way that's subtle and effective and doesn't feel like you're just lecturing or talking down to the audience. How do you achieve this? It's a very difficult balance.
I mean, that's why the Louisiana story worked, right? It wasn't a fossil fuels industry obvious, it was subtle. So absolutely, it can't be making everyone feel more guilty than they already perhaps feel. It needs to be subtle. So I'll give you an example of one of the films we've supported at the moment. It's called After the Floods, and it is a kind of 6-part ITV British primetime drama. And it's essentially a murder mystery story. And it's a story of a dead body being washed up in a flood. And it's a murder mystery. Who did it? Who done it? And that's how it will be marketed. This is the important point. It's not going to be marketed as it's a climate story. It's like extrapolations. It's just a great drama. In the backdrop of the story, they're grappling with flooding, increased flooding because of climate change, how to prevent that. In the backdrop of the story, there's farmers grappling with transitioning away from industrial farming practices. So it's seeding in the backdrop of the story, the transitions that we're going through and making it great entertainment. And crucially, it's a commercial industry. We're in a market space. And if it's going to reach audiences, it needs to be commercially viable, it needs to be entertaining, and it needs to be engaging, crucially, yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And just to circle back to that optimism or fatalism piece for a moment, and then to come back to the commercial piece, 1 in 5 young people is a climate fatalist now. And again, it's well funded by the fossil fuel industry. And if you look at the sites that used to be climate denial have flipped overnight to now climate delay. So it's not that folks really think there wasn't climate change. It was well funded. And now the game in town is to delay. So no longer deny, that's no longer plausible, but now we delay. We use the fossil fuel industry uses all sorts of narratives, like you can only take action if you're really perfect, or, never mind about fossil fuels, what about all these other sources of emissions from agriculture, etc. So it's a well-established playbook that we're working against here. But if you work on climate, you tend to be an optimist. So the closer you are to working on climate, the more of a solutionist you are. Because again, you know that all these things exist. So again, the role of film and TV to mainstream, popularise, show cultural norms, etc. But I just wanted to spend a moment on, there's some other routes to think about as well, such as the power of parables. And if you look at a lot of the youth climate activists who are now into their 20s, lots of young women and very forceful, lots of rage, and been very successful in shifting big business approach on this. And if you talk to a lot of them, they've all watched The Hunger Games. And The Hunger Games, very commercially successful, is a fight of youth against the big baddie. So you can read The Hunger Games as a parable of society against the fossil fuel industry. So I just, there's many different ways to do this, from profiling behaviours to creating positive solutions to visions of a future, to thinking about parables that can actually activate the work that we need to do now.
Lisa, so you were nodding when she mentioned the Hunger
Yeah.
Games. Is that a movie that inspired your activism? Is she describing you
Lots
as
of
well?
movies, you know. I think I'm from an age group. I'm a Gen Z member. Anything that I see on the TV and social media and magazines, we're easily influenced. We're easily tempted, and that also means we're easily moldable. So if you say the right words and do the right magic, we'll do the right thing. For me, filmmaking and activism is the same thing. They both affect social change. And that is why when I founded my NGO called the Climate Action Society, that is entirely student-led, has no funding, is completely run by students for climate advocacy and climate action and climate workshops. When I first started this NGO as a student club, no one was interested. None of my friends, no one at university. You know, there were other clubs like the Coffee Society and the Chess Society and the Football Club that everybody was going to. They were going out clubbing, and I was that boring nerd with the Climate Action Club. So I thought to myself, what do I do? How do I get people in? And then I put posters out about a chocolate fountain and a nice party and a picnic, free sandwiches and free drinks. Wow, it was sold out. You know, lots and lots of people came. And once I got them hooked in, then I sold them the message of climate action. We got a beautiful artist who painted the visual imaginary of climate action, how it was changing the world. And then we got a panel of lawyers and bankers and financiers who spoke about the future of their businesses and climate action. So all those university students who were really busy and keen to fast track into the world of finance and job applications are more likely to get sucked into the capitalist world. I already cornered them in and I told them, look, there is a couple of people doing what you're going to be doing, and there's a better way to do it. Similarly, at any workshop that we had or any event that we had, we always gave out freebies that were fun. We had poetry night. Poetry is known to evocate lots of emotions, can again cause you to feel very emotional. So I think every background and every job description can be individualized to climate action. And for me, filmmaking is the same. If we make the right content that glues to people's emotions and actually is at the same time meaningfully impactful for the purpose of the world. And that's why we need to redefine what matters to us. And so growing up, you know, I would probably choose a career that serves me purpose and serves my mom and dad a purpose. But I think now my generation has to be much more thoughtful, and we have to think, does it serve the world a purpose as well, locally, regionally, nationally, as long as I think about others. And that cycle of thoughtfulness is something that can come through filmmaking, definitely.
And your generation is also demanding change, and demanding change from the powers that be. Now at Tash Studios, you've not even built the studios, but you already have filmmakers and studios who are interested in shooting in them. They're not doing that just because they're good, they're also doing that because they feel that there is a market demand.
Right. There's a market demand and there's, I said, some awareness. Maybe later, but later is better than never, right? I'm as well quite positive in the way that I don't think like if everything is black, okay, what's the point of trying, you know? So I guess every step is important, but yes, we've been discussing with various production company, extremely big one, major one, and normal size one, but which is interesting is that all of them, yes, they want to shoot in a green place and want to know that there will be kind of a green seal on their production, of if they're being asked, saying that basically what they done for this movie or for this TV show has been done in a studio which is actually sustainable.
Well, let's talk about that, because we heard about the Albert certificate in the Awards panel earlier, which is basically a certificate given to TV shows and film that says that they follow a certain number of sustainable norms. Are you working on developing something a bit more systemic? Just like I remember when I was growing up here in France, we had like the fair trade logos on various foods. And people knew, okay, that's legit. Are you going to do something like that before a film, so we know, wow, that was made using sustainable methods and can become a brand?
I would just, we're not, but I would just love to say, I'd love to see something. Is it the Bechdel test?
We're doing.
You go. Oh, okay, you go.
But yes.
Go.
Well, firstly, there are some schemes that certify on the production side. So in the UK, there's BAFTA Albert, and there are others that give that kind of certification on the green production process. But we are, unveiling here. So the Bechdel test is, the gender test. And in a way, there's a lot of parallels between women's representation and gender equality on the screen and climate. And so we're developing a climate reality test. So it's the kind of content certification, if you like, as opposed to the production certification. And it's basically a test that says it's to meet the quote, which is, I think, Kim Stanley Robinson, who wrote the book. Yeah. If your story is set now or in the future, and it's not sci-fi, if it doesn't somehow allude to the crisis that we're living through, it is it's going to look tone deaf, and the audience are going to increasingly find it irrelevant. Your story is going to become redundant. And then there's a kind of higher standard, which is what would good storytelling look like in content. So that's what we help, along with other organisations, give that advice, as well as the funding and support of how you tell the climate story. And, not to feel alone on that. Everyone's grappling with that, and there are lots of people who can help